Welcome. I am D. Gray, says so right there. Um, my pronouns are they and them. I'm here with Inclusive Agile Presents, and today I have Lily Gilbert and Sahara Hayes with me, which I'm super, super excited. These two wonderful women have been some amazing support for me when I ran for office last year. And I didn't win, but Sahara ran and she won. So we're going to be talking about that today. I'll let you two introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of talk about our whole topic: queer politics in Utah, what it's like to be queer in the legislature in a red state. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about yourselves, please.
Nose goes. Okay. Hello, I'm Sahara Hayes. I'm representative for Utah's House District 32. I am the only openly elected LGBTQ person in the legislature. I've lived here in my district for most of my life in Utah, my whole life. We've got some great cats and some great dogs that live here with us. When I'm not in the legislature, I am an aerialist. I like to hang out on a trapeze.
Literally.
Yep. I love hiking and stuff like that. So this is my first year in public office, period. It has been very much a whirlwind of learning how to run for office and then learning how to be in office. And it turns out both of those are different skill sets than caring about public policy in the first place. So it's been a learning curve and a dramatic year, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Lily.
My name is Lily. I also am Utah. I've been partnered to this one for over a decade now, so it's been a minute. I work as a software engineer. I primarily like working in the education space or in open source spaces. Have had a lot of fun and success in that. When I'm not doing that, I'm a nerd. Like I love Dungeons and Dragons and board games, and I've been binging Diablo 4 for the past, few weeks. So just living my best life out here.
Good. As best as we can, right, for living in Utah currently. We had a really fun conversation just before we started here about the difficulty of kind of politics and what's happening here. Would you kind of give us a rundown? What has been passed here in Utah? Is it been more watered down than some of the other red states? Is it worse? Tell us how this last legislative session has been.
Sure. Can I take that one, babe?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. She knows more about what's going on in other states. I'm very plugged in here, as you would expect. So last year, 2022, we had HB 11 passed. So that was the transgender sports ban that prevents trans women in schools from participating in school sports. So that was, I think, kind of our first big anti-LGBTQ bill to really, in recent years. Let me be clear about that. I'm not talking about like the gay panic of a decade or so ago. This is sort of, new wave hysteria specifically directed at trans people. So we had that last year, and that was sort of what started the watershed in Utah. It's been going on nationally. So this past year, we had 3 out of the gate anti-trans bills. Actually, 4, but one was in response. So there were 2 bills being run that were medical care bans for transgender youth. One of them did not pass, which was good because it was extra horrific. So only the normal horrific one passed. So that is a almost complete ban on receiving hormone replacement therapy, puberty blockers, and any surgical care for trans minors. The exception to that is if you are already receiving care, you're sort of grandfathered in. Like you're not going to be cut off. Yeah. So that is a perk. Some of the things I think, sorry.
No, that's fine. I just love that we have perks in our oppression, right? And this is something that I've heard a lot when I join, the conversations with local politicians. They're like, we got this big win by making this really terrible thing just a little less terrible. And it just never feels like a win.
I so strongly agree with that. I think that's one side note. Just my biggest pet peeves is that a lot of the work that is done in LGBTQ spaces in the legislature is very reactionary. We're coming in and trying to make bad things less bad, rather than being proactive and saying, okay, where are rights lacking? Where can we actually improve people's lives? So that was one of the ones that passed this year. The other one that passed, and this was again, just like we were talking about, talked down from to be less bad. But that is a ban on trans youth updating their driver's license, birth certificate, that sort of thing, to their correct gender until they are 15 and a half. And that was negotiated down from 18, so the 15 and a half is so that they can have the correct gender on their driver's license when they get that. But still, another bill. Lil, do you want to touch on national and how it compares?
Yeah. So nationally, in red states in particular, sadly enough, it's, I think, generally a lot worse. And by that, what I mean is most of these states that are passing gender affirming care bans are taking existing trans kids off of their treatment. That is so damaging. Like, I'm not going to get into all the specifics. That is just like absolutely heinous. And that's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. Like, that's kind of the blanket level red states are doing this. But then you have states that are trying to make it legal to like take a child away from their legal guardian if they are providing gender affirming care.
Which I want to pause on that for just a second, okay? Because I think there's a lot of stuff that comes around when people say gender affirming care or, gender affirming healthcare. And like the first thing is social transitions, right? We don't, when youth come to the doctor doesn't just go, cool, here's some meds, right? And if we think that's a problem, that's probably a capitalism problem where that doctor's trying to make more money. Like, it's not that they just want to make kids other kids, right? We want to allow kids to be exactly who they are. And so, but then moving on from that, right? That just being affirmed by your family reduces suicide rates and suicide ideation by what, like 50, 60%? It's huge. Just that act of saying, I'm willing to treat you the way you're wanting to be treated. And then puberty blockers and those things are already kind of set there to allow us to have these kids take their time, right? With puberty blockers, it allows us to go, hey, we'll just, we can take some time if we want to. So that already is there. We don't need extra pieces to kind of protect these kids. We certainly, I've never talked to a conservative Utahn that believes that politicians should be involved in our healthcare. And so that's the struggle that I have often in this. So I'm sorry that I interrupted you there. You were going over all the other terrible things.
No, that's great.
And it's just, it's not that we're trying to, it's absolutely, we are trying to provide care that saves lives. And we've had some wins recently as well, and a recent loss. But have you heard about some of the wins recently in the courts?
Before jumping into that, I also just want to point out that some other studies done over the past, like, very, very recent times and over like 4 or 5 year spans found that 98% of kids who identified as trans continued to identify as trans 4 years later. So it's not something that's really just happening willy-nilly. And when these kids are given all this care, given the ability to social transition and puberty blockers and everything, their depression rates, their anxiety rates, all those things go down to basically exactly the same level of their cis counterparts. It's like, it really, really makes a huge difference. And I think that's just, worth stating. It's not just hearsay. Like, this has been studied, and that is just the fact of it.
And that's actually happened a lot recently. Is we've seen continual studies, actual evidence-based understanding that trans affirming care saves lives. It helps people. And then not only that, but imagine how hard it is to go to school every day if you can't be yourself and you're being forced to be someone else. And everybody already knows you probably want to be someone else. How do you study? how do you actually contribute actively to a classroom when you're worried about something you shouldn't be worried about? Anyway, so talk about some wins.
So for some wins, do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, I was like, but locally?
Yeah, both.
No, it was a low win session. You got this.
For nationally, some of these bills, some of the worst ones in particular, like Florida, recently has been blocked by the courts. And this isn't just an injunction, it's been actually, as I understand it, in some of these states ruled upon and ruled unconstitutional, which is fantastic. Like that is a huge win.
Yeah.
I think there's always kind of a concern for what happens if that keeps getting like pushed up, like what happens if that makes it to the Supreme Court and how does that look? But I don't think that's a reason to not celebrate these. Like we need to be pushing and fighting back and taking these wins where we can get them.
And they feel like real wins, right? I'm so excited when we make things not as terrible here in Utah. We do have some very reasonable people in the legislature that are very impassioned about what they believe, and they want to do what they think is right, even if it doesn't really align with good evidence or good science. So they're willing to listen sometimes.
Sometimes. They're sometimes willing to listen, but not willing to vote is the issue that I've found. So I am really grateful with some of my colleagues for taking the time to ask me questions and to, in good faith, learn more. I am excited for the day that doesn't translate to hitting a yes button on their vote, because that's a huge next step where you hear about people behind the scenes who work to kill bills, and that's great. But I think there's always a belief, and I hold to this belief, right? Like I am not here to represent my personal interest. I'm here to represent those of my district in the legislature. Like that is factual. That's what I'm there for. But I think that sometimes that can get co-opted one direction or the other. And so you'll hear a lot about, but like, oh, I have to be responsive to my constituents in this and what they need and want. And the message I would love to have change is to remember that there are queer and trans constituents in all of our districts, and that we all need to be responsive to those people as well, so that even if somebody is individually making, I think, progress personally and is curious, like I really applaud anybody who comes in with genuine curiosity and willingness to learn more. Like I'm so grateful that I've had those conversations. And I would be extra grateful when those translate into some more concrete actions.
Awesome. Okay. You hit something that I really want to dive into for a few minutes. And that's working behind the scenes, right? Mm-hmm. I ran for office. It was my first time actually getting heavily involved in politics that isn't just arguing with people on Reddit. And so,
You're so brave.
Anyway, I think I have my 16-year badge on there, and that's literally all I've done is just argue with people. It's like all comments. That's it. But talk to us. How do we get involved? How do we sit down with someone within our legislature, within our local spaces? I hear a lot of people going, "Oh, I've already helped legislate through things." How do you start doing that? How do regular citizens get involved?
Yeah, I feel like I have a laundry list of tips and tricks. So
hey, everyone, get out your pens and papers.
I think it's good to know what it is that you're interested in, first of all, because we pass bills on everything. Like there was a raw milk bill. There was a bill that was about artificially inseminating cows. I do not know anything about these things, right? And when we have over 1,000, I can't remember the number of bill files, that's going to be impossible to keep track of all of them. So find the things that you are interested in. And I would say there's other people that are doing the tracking. You do not have to start from scratch. You can look up ACLU of Utah. You can look up Equality Utah. Groups like that are going to have trackers in place. Like ACLU, I use theirs during session. I have resources. I have an intern that's doing this and helping me out, but I looked at theirs a couple times to see statuses. So find out what it is that you're interested in, and that can be a good starting point. With communicating with legislators, I really recommend doing it on the off season because I was just like a headless chicken for 45 days. Like it's really, I have a lot of issues with how it's structured, but it's really hard to make good decisions when you're sleep deprived and you're trying to make, I mean, like I said, we passed over 500 bills. So that's presumably 400 good decisions, I hope, you know?
Wait. 500 bills we passed
We
in
passed over
45
500.
days.
Yes.
That's 12 important decisions a day, or roughly, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have a hard time with like 4, and 2 of those are should I get up? Right?
Like, what time should I go to bed?
I thought you were bragging when you said 4 at first, but now that makes sense.
So there's a lot, right? Like it's hard to keep track of everything, and we're all busy, and sometimes, you know, that's important because you've got a vote coming up. But if you're a person that has an idea about legislation that they would like to see, talk to people in the off season. So I had a constituent reach out because they were interested in mental health support for homeless populations. And that's the sort of thing where I'm probably going to need to talk to, this is on my to-do list, like I need to call a policy analyst and ask what other people are doing in this space. I need to figure out what state departments are working in this area already, what work is already being done. So there's many steps. But that being said, like we're, for the most part, I think, happy to take your call. Like we need to know, like I'm in a vacuum. I've got 31 years of life experience. I cannot know everything, unfortunately. It would be cool if I could. But so reach out not during the 45 days if you have good ideas. So that's a way to get it involved. And then if you are reaching out via email and things like that, be clear in your message. Do not copy paste. Like I got so many emails that were the exact same email, like hundreds of them that were just all like, use this language, reach out to your legislator. And like, that's fine if you want to annoy somebody. It's not great for making change. The ones that were impactful were the people that reached out and said, hey, here is my story. And it doesn't have to be a novel, especially if it's during session, because again, we're a little bit strapped for time. So saying, hey, here's my story. This is what I'm interested in. Will you consider voting this way? Hey, this is my story. It's June. I know you've got a few months before session. Can we meet about a potential bill idea? Things like that. Like I talked to, and it's so impactful. Like I talked to a woman at a town hall, and the thing she said to me is, I just don't want my kid to die, talking about school shootings. And like, if you have like, there's nothing more impactful than that, right? And knowing that you have that responsibility to then do everything you can to make sure that this woman's kid stays alive. So that's I feel like the TLDR on like quick how to get a hold of your legislator and get things happening. The other things you can do are during session, and this is back to where like I think the tracking comes in handy. Things are going to go before committee, and that is if you want to make a public comment, that is your time to do so. If it's on the floor of the House or the Senate, like too late, ship sailed, YOLO. But if it's going before committee, you can show up and they will say for everything, like, is there anybody here to speak to this bill? And you go, yes, please. And if it's a popular bill or a really unpopular bill, there's probably going to be a lot of people there and you might not get to speak. But if you want public comment on the record, that is the time and place.
And to like expand on that, like even if you don't get to speak, just seeing a lot of people show up to like protest SB 16, even if it doesn't change anything, it makes it better for, you know, trans people and for people who are affected by that, just to see that there is support. Mm-hmm. Just even if you're just a body in the room trying to fight for this, like nothing's going to change immediately. And so anything we can do to even get the incremental changes feels like steps in the right direction.
Yeah, there was an overflow room for that bill.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's super important, right? As an inclusive space where we teach a lot about how to bring lots of people into and be effective in their workspaces, understanding that, yeah, I could go and speak and that would be the best thing to happen, but I don't have to, right? If you are someone that is just, I've met a number of people that public speaking, they cry. It doesn't matter what they're talking about, they cry. And that's so difficult to be able to actually communicate effectively what they're trying to say when people then assert some sort of value on their emotions, right? So helping them understand you can contribute just by showing up, right? So finding those trackers, showing up, and just being there, sometimes it inspires you to speak at the same time, which has happened for me, which is why I started to run, was just seeing people speak and having that conversation. I wanted to be part of it. And so part of this is also my own, like, how do I start helping? Because I was told by a constituent, right? My particular district, heavy red. It was just recently redistricted to heavy red. And this constituent's like, you're not going to win. So what are you going to do when you lose? Are you going to stop? Or are you going to keep working? And I still get a little about it because I don't even know if she was was going to vote for me. But she was heavily invested in saying, you are passionate about this, keep going. And that's really where Inclusive Agile kind of came out of that, was knowing that I can impact things at a private space and private companies to actually help them increase their actual productivity through creating psychologically safe environments, which is what we do. Commercial break. We do coaching and other really, really cool stuff. I also want to point out, Lily, if you can point straight above you, there is the ACLU link for one of the trackers, I believe. So you can scan that thing and you'll be able to actually find those trackers. Thank you very much to our producer, Darren, today.
Thanks, Darren.
Darren. Yes, if you are interested in understanding on how to improve even the conversations within politics, inclusion and agility are ways to iterate, understand, and deliver improvements that everyone's invested in. And so that's what we're bringing together, is that agile that software has been running for a really, really long time, and DEI that we've been trying to do for 40 years, right? DEI is not new. Our first sexual harassment trainings in the 80s, that was DEI work, right? We've been doing this for a really long time, and we're really, really bad at it. And let's start getting better at it. And it's not through trainings, it's through understanding everyone's involved in that impact of creating a more inclusive space. Okay, commercial break's over. I should have like some sort of jingle we do to get back to the conversation. But
I was ready.
Back to the conversation. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about how to contribute by talking directly to your politicians, right? Your actual representatives. I want to kind of talk about, how do we talk to our neighbors, right? I think one of the most difficult things about Utah is how nice everybody is. And that may sound weird, but nice is the process of lying to someone in order to not make them feel bad, right? And so I've had multiple conversations with neighbors where they, okay, I understand, I agree, I understand, but then later repeat the same things that I had already talked to them about as if we never had a conversation, and continue to vote and support for things that they worked through with me, right? And so that's where that niceness gets difficult, and why I ran last year on kindness. Kindness is that ability to go, I actually am going to help you understand how you're impacting the world around you, right? Actual valuable feedback. How do we do that? How do we help our neighbors understand? And so we don't have to start,
It's so freaking hard. And I say this as a person who, like, raised in Utah, hello, like, I've been built on that Utah niceness thing. And I think, gosh, it's like you said, like I think there's a balance between the thing that I've had to work on a lot is recognizing that they are a whole entire human being too. And that their beliefs and their prerogatives come from all the years that have shaped them into being exactly who they are, right? Like I asked my mom when I was 5 if I could marry a girl. This is 96, and she was like, yeah. And then I had to have a conversation with all my other 5-year-old friends because I then went and asked them all if they would marry me because I wanted to make sure I wasn't locked down with a guy. And that was very important to me. And there were so many of them that said, you can't marry, girls can't marry girls. And I said, yes, they can. My mom said, right? So, but that's born into my psyche. Like I had it, and it still took me until I was 30 to come out. But that was drilled down into me. So what was drilled down into them? Right. And trying to approach it from that lens, because that is my lived experience, but that does not invalidate theirs.
I love this so much. I like to talk a ton about systems thinking, which is the simplest explanation for systems thinking is we start with the assumption that everyone is doing the very best they can with the information they have. It's not that they're evil. They're not just an opposition to your rights. They are a human being that has been brought to this situation and making these choices based off of real information that's made it to them. Is it true? Is it valuable? Does it actually help them? Does it align with the values that we put into our Constitution, right? Those are all different questions than, are they a good person, right? Or are they a bad person? Are they here to just hurt us? And I think those kind of people do exist, but I think that they exist, again, through their lived experience, right? So I love that you brought that up, that's the first thing to really recognize is we're not here to say, the choice you made to think this is terrible. Mm-hmm. We're here to say, here's some additional information that you may want to consume to help you shape this decision in the future.
Sure.
And I do want to point out one other facet of this as well, is it's who needs to be having these conversations. More often than not, these conversations fall on trans people. And I can only speak for myself, but I really can't have them anymore just for my own mental health. There's only so much talking to people who are going to validate you and trying to help them learn that you can do before it really starts affecting you. So these conversations need to happen, but we need to not be the one to take the entire brunt of them. We need our cisgender allies and our non-gay allies to really, step up and help be the shield for us, because we have the entire burden of this fight on our backs, along with being legislated out of existence and worried about being hate crimed and all sorts of other problems.
Which, from a political standpoint, that's an economic impact. When you have a constituency, and we're now seeing that there's, it's much higher than the 10% are queer that we used to read about, that you have a good portion of your entire constituency that has a harder time interacting with their neighbors, interacting with their coworkers and their peers because of this rhetoric, because of this attempt to invalidate us, purely for winning additional seats, because it's been valuable for some people in order to win elections. Which is really the issue I had when I ran last year, was how much of it's data driven without really driving into what are your values, right? So here's the data, so make sure you say these things, when sometimes those things aren't worth saying. They're not actually valuable. I had one other thing that you were just talking about. Shoot, I lost it. What did you just say, Lily?
needing others to kind of stand up and the fight.
Yes, thank you. Co-conspirators. That's what we need. Allies are great. We need co-conspirators.
I love that.
We need people that are willing to work with us. The other thing that I like to say is we need choir singers, right? The reason why I like to liken this to a choir is an individual can hold a note for 7 minutes if they're really practiced, right? More likely 3 to 4, more likely 1 or like 12
I
seconds.
was gonna say, who can do that for 7 minutes? That's amazing.
Right? But a choir can hold a note indefinitely, right? Because, I mean, no one's going to actually set this up as a particular art piece, but you can stop and the rest of the choir still sings, right? And you can take a break. You can take some rest for yourself so that when you're ready to sing, you have a lot more energy to contribute to that singing. So it's in addition to, we need more singers so we can take our breaks. It also is a call to rest, right? For the activists out there, Lily, I've been in that position so many times, right? And when the conversation starts, I go, and I'm already defeated. But at the same time, I know how important it is to have this conversation with this person, right? Because I don't know if they're going to ask anybody else about this ever again. And so it's hard, but it's worth it for us to take rest, because then we can come back and really work well as the group that we are. And we don't have to do it as individuals. So take your rest. It's good. Okay, this has been so much fun so far. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, we've been talking a lot about a lot of the terrible stuff that we kind of experience. But I have some really amazing people here with me, Lily and Sahara, and I want to actually hear your experience of trans or queer joy, right? What does that mean to you? Because I see that everywhere. Trans joy is real. What does that mean to you? How does that feel, I guess? And when do you experience it?
I guess that's me.
That's you. You got to take this one.
Yeah, I think it's hard, like you said, because there's a lot of hard stuff. Like, I'd say being trans is one of the probably like hardest things in my life. Like, I would never choose this. I would never wish it upon anyone. Like, I know there are trans people out there who can get to a point in their transition where they are very glad for these both lived experiences. And I think that's magical, but that's like not me right now. Like, if I'm being candid, being trans kind of sucks. Now, that said, transitioning has been the single best choice that I have ever made in my life, without a doubt. So would never wish it on anyone, but the act of being authentic to myself, being perceived how I want to be perceived, being, able to have these social connections in ways that feel like they work for me, instead of me feeling like I'm a gear that doesn't quite fit in and is just trying to, pretend that I get along with everyone else in ways that don't work for me. Like, it's not hyperbole, I think, to say that it saved my life. It really made my life get to a point worth living. And even though there is some, really hard downs, and there's a lot of, challenges that come with this, from the world at large to my own dysphoria to, trying to get my voice to sound congruent. That's been a huge one for me. There's also been the biggest joy in just living my life that I have ever felt. And it's nothing, especially unique. It's not like a once in a lifetime trip to Paris. It's just going to the store. It's hanging out with some new friends. It's, all these little things that I think a lot of people can just take for granted day for day. That for the first time in my life, after 30 years of faking it, really get to just experience that like wellness with my own brain. And I think for me, that's like the biggest definition of trans joy. Like it's not a big overarching thing. It's just life.
Can I speak as an observer really fast?
Yes.
First of all, wow, it's a big difference having your partner be happy when you didn't realize they weren't for 8 years. But have you seen Spirited Away, Dee?
I have, yes.
You know the radish spirit and how it kind of like dances like this?
Yes.
Okay, so I call it her radish dance. So I can always tell when Lily's happy because she starts like vibing back and forth doing her little radish dance. And it's so cute, and it happens so frequently, and it wasn't even a thing before. Like watching her, I don't know, like I can tell when we're trying on clothes in a store if she likes it because she'll start radishing. It's like, and so anyway, that's just how I observe her joy come out physically. It's really fun.
So do you ever just say, Lily, today you look radishing?
I will now.
Absolutely. And Brandy just commented, it's the little things. Thank you for sharing where you find your joy. Awesome. Thank you, Brandy, for your comment. I'm in the same place, right? And it's if I can share my own experience here.
It's your live stream, dude.
Yeah. Take over. You're gonna listen to me now. No, that experience of finding yourself being accepted outside of your general safe space, right? Your general island, right? When you get to go on a trip and someone looks at the button on my shirt and sees that it's they, them, and immediately starts using those particular pronouns with me, right? That right there, that will carry me for days. I just recently had an experience. I took my youngest son, who, without any prodding in any particular direction, loves dresses, loves them, because we love Frozen and we love, all of these different Disney movies. We love Disney, and they're more fun. Let's be real, right? Like
they twirl.
They float up when he jumps, and he's like, "Look, I'm like an umbrella." Right? There's just so many cool things. But I'm walking with him in the park nearby, and this guy starts interacting with us in a positive way. He's talking about the moon, and then he said, "I really like that dress on my kid," and I was like, "Oh, that's cool. You should wear a dress if you like." And he's like, "I've been thinking about it, but I just don't see a whole lot that fit the masculine body, right?" And that switch of terminology, right? Understanding it might help me feel better, maybe, is so powerful, right? And so the rest of the time, I'm like, I should go back to that guy and just say thank you and like get his Instagram or whatever, because it was just, it validates that you matter, right? And that what's happening inside of you can let out, and other people aren't going to punish you for doing so. And we don't get it all the time. So those little peaks, those little lighthouses in the dark really shine and bring out that trans joy. I'm completely in agreement. It's not, I put on a dress and all of a sudden, I'm so happy. It's, I put on a dress and I love the way that I look, and then someone compliments me, right? Or someone goes, I'm not sure how I do they, them. Is there an easy way to do this, right? Just that question of how do I help you feel safe here, are the little things that matter the most, which I'm going to bring it back around to a topic that we've hit a couple of other times, which is just ask or try. All of us are not in a position where we're going to get mad if you make a mistake, because we've all made mistakes, because we've lived with ourselves, not as ourselves, for a really long time. So we make mistakes. So we're not going to get mad at you if you make mistakes. But if you do, say sorry, use the correct term, move on. Real easy. Don't make a big deal out of it, all those things. Now, this is something that someone else said in another conversation Do you feel like that's where you are as well, Lily? That if someone misgenders you or uses a previous name by accident, are you going, ah, or are you going, hmm?
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like anger is my response. I think there is understandably like a moment of, I guess, sadness would be the best term. Like it never feels good and it's never going to, but it's an understandable, situation. And, I've
We understand.
happens and I'm not going to be like, oh no, I'm going to blow up this friendship because of one slip in the past like 11 months. Like that's unreasonable. And I don't think
I get
anyone would do
angry.
that.
I get angry on your behalf.
That's so funny because that's the way my partner Jenna is as well. It's like,
Yeah, I'm like, are you kidding me? I yelled at I yelled at your mom the day.
You did? You did.
Yeah.
we all love our mama bears that protect us.
Yeah.
So thank you for that work, Sahara. Because it is work. All of this is work. It takes effort to be doing this, which means we don't have the same level of effort we can put into our communities, into our jobs, into our families, right? It's not just a matter of one opinion versus another. It's a matter of economic impact and mental health. So this is, okay, I want to talk something fun for a minute. Video games.
Just
You may go.
ancestry tradition as a kid, we're done. Yeah. I watched her play part of Last of Us.
That's true. You
Yes.
did.
And I got partway through Ori and cried a lot because she kept dying.
Also true.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah. No, Last of Us was great. I actually played that with Jenna. She watched me play through the whole thing. Great story. Great story. I really dig it. Okay, but there's been a lot of representation changes in video games recently. That was always my solace. Was I was able to join World of Warcraft, create a female character, run around, and then jump into a conversation with someone and still have my masculine voice, and they're just going to have to deal with that. How did video games affect you and your passion?
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you, D. I'm laughing because of like
Very similar
the
experiences.
Venn diagram is
Yeah.
like being circular.
No, like I've always picked women in video games from when I was as young as I can remember. Like the very first Mass Effect, it was
Oh my God, yes.
Shepard, and all of my friends. Yeah. All of my friends were playing men and I just played the women, and it just like, I don't know, I just did. Like I didn't have a reason for it. It didn't click until many, many years later that there was an underlying reason for it. Not that makes you trans if you enjoy playing the opposite gender of a video game.
It doesn't have to make you trans.
Maybe it's something
There's
you're
no
into.
rules out there to
Yeah.
define your
Just
trans.
feels good.
Exactly. But yeah, no, for me, it was really funny in hindsight, looking back and being like, oh yeah, I definitely always gravitated towards the more feminine stuff, even in like more masculine, stereotypical games. And I think that was an outlet for me that I didn't even realize was an outlet. I definitely used video games as escapism quite a lot, and it helped for that. In a similar way that like reading did. All of my favorite books growing up involved like depressed, outcast teenage women. And again, it's it's a sign, and it just took me until I was older to realize that.
You're right. It's like a circular Venn diagram. Effect, which I think I played female characters in World of Warcraft first, but that was
Too, yep.
it is what it is, right? It doesn't change anything. And Mass Effect, it barely changed anything there, but you had the voice, right? You actually got to be someone a little different. So now recommendation. Most recently, what's your most like kind of queer friendly game that you would recommend?
That's a really hard question because I've basically been playing Rocket League and Diablo 4, and neither of those are good for that. Those are both terrible games. Don't play them, but they're fun. But don't play them.
Don't buy Blizzard.
Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like probably The Last of Us would have to take that cake. And if there is more games, like tell me, I want to know them.
Mm.
But I feel like Last of Us, particularly Last of Us Part 2, was very controversial in a lot of ways, but it was very much queer representation in a lot of ways as well. And I very much appreciated that. And I played that before I came out and loved it. And I'm a little scared to go play it again because I think I'm just going to cry my eyes out.
Probably.
Have you watched the series?
Yes, speaking of crying your eyes out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So good.
Episode 3.
Oh my gosh. Right, like that. Peeps, go play or watch. Both completely great experiences, and very separate. Okay, recommendations. Cyberpunk 2077 allows you to choose a body shape and pronouns, but not necessarily a male body or a female body. My favorite. There's a PlayStation game called TCHIA, Chia. Most inclusive game I've ever seen.
She's writing this
I'm going
down.
to write that down right now. This feels
on the chat. TCHIA.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Thank you for the recommendation, Brandy, and whoever yelled it from the Inclusive Agile channel. Apparently, it's very popular. So, but for me, my favorite was the Borderlands series. They had an entry recently where you actually played like more D&D style. And for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the game right now. So producer, help me out. But that one, you just chose body type, you chose pronouns, you got to really experience, I'm going to just create this character the way that I want to, which was very different for them. They used to just have here's the character you have to play. And that gets difficult, right? When we don't get to always be ourselves out here, when we go into our virtual worlds and the only option we have is to play someone that makes us feel dysphoric, it's not a game we can enjoy, right? There have been so many times where I've started playing games and going, I would love to do this. Tiny Tina's Adventure. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and throw that right on the whole banner. Tiny Tina's Adventure. Super, super great. Highly recommend. Lots of ridiculousness, but it feels like a normal D&D campaign, right? Where it starts off with some pretty good ideas and then just
devolves. You're having a heist in a Is that the one that Matt Mercer's voice for? Something else. Never mind.
Oh no, we're good. Okay, we only have 10 more minutes left. I'm going to do one more call for questions because we're kind of at the end. So if anyone out there has any questions, please submit them. If you're watching this as a recording, submit the questions anyway. We're happy to continue to engage with whoever ends up engaging with this. And go and support Sahara Hayes. Are you going to run again next year?
I am. Yep.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Would love to support you. So let's chat a lot about that.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
But not right now because it's not time. It's off season. So I may actually decide to run against Natalie Klein next year.
Please.
Good luck.
Please.
Desperately need
I think the only thing I need to do is just get in a room with her and have her just talk to me publicly. Like a joint town hall. Because I think, I say this a lot. One of the best ways to create an ally is to just get to know a queer person.
Yep.
Like 80% of people say that's when I decided to look a little bit deeper into it. was when I met a queer person, they became my friend, and I became invested in their well-being.
Which I love until it gets to the point where you have to tokenize yourself in order to have progress made.
Tell us what that means. Help the audience understand. What do you mean by tokenize our
Sure. Like I always joke that everybody at the legislature now at least knows one queer person. Like they do. But I'm also potentially a go-to for questions, which I, again, appreciate deeply. And I am aware of how I present myself and the fact that I don't represent everybody. So they can't, I worry personally about falling into the, oh, this is Sahara, she's emblematic of queer people in general, right? And like I'm a white cis woman. I'm in the legislature. I'm dripping privilege right now. And I am really good at presenting myself in traditionally straight spaces. Like I fit, like my headshot for the I look like I came back from a mission, you guys. Like I can't do anything about that, but it's true, right? And so I don't want to ever be or have somebody be in a position where it's like that, oh well, this is my queer friend and I have a queer friend, so I'm exempt. I care about their personal well-being, but not everybody else's. I know what they want, but maybe that doesn't apply to everybody else. I think it can be really easy to take that one conversation and use it to justify yourself or your actions, or to pretend that it is indicative of a larger trend when it's not. Sometimes people are just people, right? Like I
think that's
tell people that like my queerness, I think, is one of the least interesting things about me, but it's all that the media cares about, right? It's all that anybody else cares about. And so things like that. That's what I mean.
So to bring it, it's that idea that just by being yourself as the person that you are, you run the risk of then creating an understanding of all queer people through your presentation, your presence. That other people will say, well, that's how all queer people are, or that's how they all should be if they're good queer people, right? These are good queer people. Those are bad queer people.
Yes. I think there's some of that. I think there's always an ability to put people in little boxes. I think we do it a lot as a society. And I think if you say sometimes, oh, well, I've had a good conversation with this person, so therefore I am an ally, like slap a badge on it, we're done. Like I get a gold sticker, I can move out my way because I had one conversation, not knowing that like, I mean, I came out only a couple of years ago. Like my life story is going to be very different from other people's life stories. And I hope that anybody that you're having those conversations with, which I think is wonderful, I hope that they go out and have more conversations and don't ever take it in the light of like, oh, well, I talked to XYZ and they behaved well. Like, don't
they were normal? So yeah. I don't have to actually consider other types of queerness, right?
Exactly. Or queerness that you're uncomfortable with. Like people are generally fairly comfortable around me, which is like something I've worked hard at. Like I worked in customer service for so long, you guys, and you'd be amazed how well that works in politics. But the fact that I am palatable traditionally to a lot of people, I hope that never deters people from seeking out more conversations when they're uncomfortable and taking those just as seriously.
I love that. Instead of having the one conversation and feeling good, make it the start of your journey.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Like great. Good for you for having this conversation. Go have another with somebody else. Go have another with somebody who looks different from you, somebody who grew up somewhere else. Like,
awesome. Okay. We're hitting the very end. I want to throw some time to either of you if you want to bring up anything that you're currently working on or passionate about, or if you want to do a shout out to anyone in particular, right? Because there's like 1 million people watching this.
Yeah, let's shout out Inclusive Agile. They seem like a pretty cool company.
Yeah, they are a pretty cool company. They've got some really great people in them. Hey, look, and there's our website. InclusiveAgile.com.
Good website.
We do individual coaching. One of my favorite levels of coaching is actually helping parents understand and interact with their kids, their queer kids, because a lot of them want to do better, and they're looking for how they're looking for the language, because none of us are born with the language to be good to each other in this space, right? We've had to learn it because we've hurt people, and we needed to figure out how to not do it anymore.
And I think it's awesome that you're doing that. And I think it's so cool that society at large is like getting better. Like when I was growing up, being gay would get you crucified, and being trans wasn't even a thing that was known. Like my life would be vastly different if I knew that was an option when I was 8 years old. And these days you have kids just normalizing, like, for asking pronouns and correcting others. Like there's a lot of work to go, but it's really awesome to see the younger generations, take these massive strides in these amazing directions.
Agreed. Absolutely. My oldest, he's 11, and I'll be like, "Oh, she just cut me off while we're driving," and he's like, "How do you know that's a woman?" And I'm like, "Okay, they just cut me off. Thank you, right?" Because they don't have 30 to 40 years of here's the boxes that everyone fits in, right? They're being introduced to the idea that there's freedom in our expression and of who we are. And I think that is giving them that system, that pieces of information. And it so easily helps them be just more kind, right? It's not that they get mad at people, they just are more kind. And I don't know if you know Alok or Alok, I don't know if I'm saying their name correctly. Binary influencer. They've been in a couple of like late night shows or whatever, but they really talk about we're just here to teach liberty, right? Real freedom of expression, and that comes all the way down to the core of us, right? Where when I finally figured out I could be who I was, I didn't know that there was language until I was 38, right? I had no clue that language existed, and there were other people that felt so similar to me. My experience was the same as yours, right? We had movies that introduced us to the concept of trans people through violence and humor and not good experiences. And so it was never considered that this was something we could go and actually look at, right? That's for bad people. Okay. I want to end this on a positive note. So, Sahara,
Sup?
tell everybody because I think it's a positive note. What was your margin of win last year?
So I passed one bill. I was pretty pleased with it, and it passed unanimously.
Awesome.
So it passed unanimously through committee, and then the House, and then the Senate. Okay, here's a fun fact: they haze you. That's a thing. So if you're a freshman, everybody votes no before voting yes, but there was like 18 freshmen, so that got old really fast. So by the time my bill was up, which was last week of session, I thought I was in the clear, got through the House. No joke, I went over to the Senate to watch it pass, and they hazed me. They all stood up and voted no before changing their vote. So complete margin of victory. It was really exciting. But that was, fun facts you learn about the legislature involves hazing your freshmen.
It's almost like they haven't heard about, the possibly negative aspects of hazing or something.
I did cry.
See, like, and
yeah, I'm like, I don't. I'm a flower. I bruise easily.
Oh my gosh, okay. Actually, we're ending on a positive.
Ending on a positive note. I passed bill. It was exciting. I was proud.
Bill. You won your election. What was your election?
73%.
What was that?
Yeah, I've won by 73%.
That's incredible.
Thanks.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you both for the work you do, right? Because it's work to show up, especially in the tech space here in Utah, as we are. I don't know how many times I was told I was brave, despite the fact that I was just terrified every day. And I'm like, I don't want to be brave. I want to be left alone most of the time. And thank you, Sahara, for the work you're doing in what is kind of a very hostile space, and still committing to it and wanting to do it again next year. Thank you for running, and thank you for all the work that you both do.
Thank you for running and the work that you do.
Anyway, we are going to chat some more because I want to start a podcast with you two.
I'm a little busy at the moment, but
Okay, I want to start a podcast with Lily then.
she's pretty good at this.
It'd be fun. We'll play video games or board games and talk trans politics.
There we go. Done.
Yeah. Anyway, have a great day. Thank you, everybody. Again, Inclusive Agile does individual and organizational coaching and training and transformation to help you build an inclusive environment, because it's not just about being good. It's also highly more productive, and it helps create a healthier world. So thank you. And visit us, inclusiveagile.io. And we're super excited to keep doing this work. And hopefully I will be at the legislative session next year and start chatting with some people. Okay, thank you.